The lights in the Galactic Museum of Natural History dimmed as closing time approached. Curator Hyan walked through the empty halls, his forearms clasped behind his back. His footsteps echoed against the polished stone floors. He had worked here for 30 years and he knew every exhibit by heart. The museum sat on Valoran Prime, the capital world of the Valoran Council. Millions of visitors came each year from across the galaxy. They came to see the wonders of extinct civilizations, preserved animals from dead worlds, and artifacts from species that no longer existed. But the most popular exhibit was Hall 17, the human exhibit. Dr. Murray stood in front of the massive display case making notes on her datapad. She was young for a xenobiologist, barely passed her certification trials. Her silver skin reflected the blue light from the holographic displays. She had spent the last 6 months studying everything the museum had about humans. The exhibit took up an entire wing. Glass cases lined the walls, filled with objects recovered from the ruins of human space stations. There were photographs printed on actual paper, a material so fragile that they kept it in climate-controlled boxes. There were tools, clothing, and even a preserved human skeleton mounted in the center of the room. Above it all, a massive hologram showed Earth. The planet rotated slowly, blue and green and beautiful. Then the simulation would show the sun expanding, turning red, swallowing the inner planets. The hologram would fade to black and the cycle would start again. "Still here, Dr. Murray?" Curator Hyan asked as he approached. Murray looked up from her work. "I wanted to finish cataloging the new artifacts from the Outer Rim expedition. They found another human outpost, abandoned, of course, but there were personal items, journals, photographs, children's toys." Hyan nodded slowly. The tragedy of humanity never stops fascinating visitors. "Do you know how many species come here just to see this exhibit?" "Thousands each week," Murray said. "I read the visitor logs. They want to understand how a species can reach the stars and still die," Hyan continued. He gestured at the hologram of Earth's destruction. Humans had warning. They knew their sun was dying. They built colony ships. They tried to escape. But they were too slow, Murray finished. She had heard this story 100 times. The supernova happened before most of the colony ships could get far enough away. The radiation wave destroyed them. We estimate only a handful of ships escaped, but none of them ever reached their destinations. They must have failed in deep space. Curator Hyan looked at the skeleton in the center display. The placard beneath it read, Homo sapiens. Origin Earth Sol System. Status extinct. Last confirmed sighting 847 standard years ago. "It's strange to think about," Murray said quietly. "Humans were so much like us. They laughed, they cried, they loved their children. They made art and music. And now they're just gone. Nothing but artifacts in a museum." "That is the nature of extinction," Hyan said. "Come, it's closing time. The security systems need to activate." Murray gathered her datapad and followed Curator Hyan out of Hall 17. The lights dimmed further as they left. The hologram of Earth continued its endless cycle of death and rebirth. They walked toward the main entrance together. The museum was vast, spanning nearly a mile in diameter. Most of the staff had already gone home. Only the night security team remained, monitoring the building from their stations. Hyan's personal office sat near the main entrance. He paused at the door, preparing to wish Murray a good evening when an alarm chimed softly. "What's that?" Murray asked. Hyan pulled up a holographic display from his wrist communicator. "Entrance sensors. Probably a malfunction. The weather system has been unstable today. High radiation from the solar flares." But the chiming continued. Hyan frowned and expanded the display. The entrance bioscanner showed something waiting outside the sealed doors. "That's odd," he muttered. Murray looked over his shoulder at the readings. Her eyes widened. "That can't be right." The bioscanner showed a humanoid figure. 2 arms, 2 legs, standing upright. But it was the genetic marker that made Murray's breath catch in her throat. The scanner identified it as Homo sapiens, human. "It's a malfunction," Hyan said immediately. "The sensors are damaged. Maybe the solar radiation corrupted the system." "Run it again," Murray insisted. Hyan ran the scan 3 more times. Each time the result came back the same. Human. DNA matched to the samples in the museum's collection. 99.7% certainty. "That's impossible," Hyan whispered. "Humans are extinct. We have documented proof. 800 years of evidence." Then explain the readings, Mirai said. Her hands trembled as she stared at the display. They both turned to look at the main entrance doors. They were massive, made of reinforced metal designed to protect the museum's priceless collections. Through the small window set into the door, they could see a figure standing outside. The figure wore an environmental suit. It was old, patched with mismatched materials, covered in frost and scoring from micrometeorite impacts. The faceplate was fogged, hiding whoever or whatever was inside. As they watched, the figure raised one gloved hand. It curled into a fist, and then it knocked 3 times on the door. The sound echoed through the empty entrance hall. Mirai and Hyun stared at each other in shock. What do we do? Mirai asked. Security, Hyun said. We call security. This could be dangerous. It could be a prank or a threat or... The figure knocked again. 3 precise strikes against the metal door. Mirai made a decision. She walked toward the door. Dr. Mirai, wait! Hyun called out, but she was already at the control panel. Her fingers moved across the buttons. The security system requested confirmation. She pressed her palm against the scanner. The massive doors began to open with a hiss of pressurized air. Cold wind rushed into the entrance hall. The figure stood motionless in the doorway, silhouetted against the lights of the city beyond. Hyun activated the building's defense system silently. Energy barriers flickered to life around the entrance. Security drones descended from the ceiling, weapons charging. If this creature was dangerous, they would be ready. The figure stepped forward into the light. It moved slowly, carefully, like someone who had been in zero gravity too long. The environmental suit was definitely human in design. Mirai recognized the style from the museum's archives. Old, very old. Hello? Mirai called out. Her voice shook. Can you understand me? The figure stopped walking. It reached up to its helmet with both hands. There was a hiss of releasing pressure and the helmet came free. A man's face appeared. His skin was pale from lack of sunlight. His hair was black, tangled and too long. His eyes were dark and tired, with deep shadows beneath them. He had a short beard, unkempt and rough. He was human. Undeniably, impossibly human. I speak English, the man said. His voice was hoarse, like he hadn't used it in a long time. And Korean. Do you understand either of those languages? The museum's translation system activated automatically, converting his words into Veloran. We understand, Mirai managed to say. Who are you? How are you here? Your species is extinct. The man looked past them into the museum. His eyes scanned the entrance hall, taking in the alien architecture, the technology, the security drones hovering nearby. My name is Taiyang, he said slowly. I've been in cryosleep for a very long time. My ship's computers detected this facility from orbit. They said you had information about Earth. He paused, and his expression became uncertain, almost afraid. I'm looking for Earth, Taiyang said. Your sign outside says you have it here. Can you tell me where my home is? Curator Hyun and Dr. Mirai stood frozen, unable to speak. Behind them, the hologram in Hall 17 continued its display. Earth burning, Earth dying, Earth becoming nothing but dust and memory. And in the entrance hall, impossible and alive, stood the last human either of them would ever expect to see. Taiyang sat in the medical examination room, electrodes attached to his temples, chest, and arms. The Valoran doctors moved around him with practiced efficiency, their multiple limbs handling various scanning devices at once. He watched them work with a strange detachment, as if this was happening to someone else. Dr. Mirai stood behind the observation glass with Curator Hyun and a new arrival, Ambassador Jiwon. The ambassador wore the formal robes of the Valoran Council, deep purple with silver threading. Her face was unreadable as she studied the data streaming across multiple displays. The genetic analysis is complete, one of the doctors announced. The subject is definitely human. Homo sapiens. No genetic modification, no alien contamination. His DNA matches the archived samples from Earth with 99.9% accuracy. That should be impossible, Ambassador Jiwon said coldly. Earth was destroyed 847 years ago. Every human colony ship was accounted for. They all failed. Not all of them, Mirai said quietly. She pulled up a holographic file. 3 ships were never found. The Dandelion Seed, the Distant Hope, and the Final Journey. They were listed as lost in deep space, presumed destroyed. Inside the examination room, Taeyang spoke to one of the doctors. His voice came through the speakers clearly. How long was I asleep? He asked. Based on your cellular degradation and the radiation exposure patterns in your suit, we estimate 830 years, the doctor replied. Taeyang closed his eyes. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Ambassador Jiwon turned to Curator Hyun. Your museum has caused a significant problem, Curator. For centuries we have displayed humans as extinct. We have charged admission to see their artifacts. We have published academic papers about their disappearance. And now one walks through your door. I displayed the truth as we knew it, Hyun said defensively. No human had been seen for 800 years. Every outpost was found abandoned. Every colony ship recovered was filled with corpses or empty cryopods. The evidence was overwhelming. And yet here he is, Jiwon said. Alive. The Galactic Council is already receiving urgent messages from a dozen worlds. News travels fast. Everyone knows that a human has been found. They want answers, Mirai stepped forward. Permission to speak with him, Ambassador. I've studied human culture more than anyone in this sector. I can help him understand what's happened. Jiwon considered for a moment, then nodded. You may speak with him. But I will be listening. We need to understand how he survived and if there are others. Miri entered the examination room. Taeyang looked up as she approached. Up close, she could see how exhausted he was. His eyes were bloodshot, his movements slow and careful. Hello, Taeyang, she said, using the museum's translator. My name is Dr. Miri. I'm a xenobiologist. I study extinct species. I'm not extinct, Taeyang said with a weak smile. Clearly. No, you're not, Miri agreed. She pulled up a chair and sat across from him. But I need you to prepare yourself for some difficult information. Can you tell me what you remember? Why were you in cryosleep? Taeyang took a deep breath. The sun was dying. Everyone knew it. Earth had maybe 50 years left, maybe less. The government launched colony ships. My family was selected for the Dandelion seed. We were going to Kepler 442b. It was supposed to take 400 years. What happened to your ship? Mirai asked gently. We were 3 months into the journey when something went wrong, Taeyang said. His voice became distant, remembering. I was already in cryosleep, but I could hear the alarms through the fog. Feel the ship shaking. The cryobay lost power. Emergency protocols activated. He looked down at his hands. When I woke up, I was alone. The ship had suffered massive damage crossing through an uncharted debris field. All the other cryopods had failed. The power systems were barely functional. Life support was dying. How did you survive? Mirai asked. The ship's AI was still partially working. It calculated that one person, with strict rationing and minimal power usage, could survive until we reached this sector. So I lived in that broken ship for 3 years. Eating recycled protein paste, drinking recycled water, fixing what I could fix, trying not to think about everyone in the other pods. Taeyang's voice cracked slightly. I walked past my mother's pod every day. My sister's pod. They were right there. Frozen. Dead. And I couldn't help them. Mirai felt a deep sadness for this man. I'm very sorry for your loss. What happened to Earth? Taeyang asked suddenly. When I saw your museum sign, it said you had Earth here. I thought maybe the evacuation succeeded. That maybe everyone made it out and you had records of where they went. Mirai glanced at the observation window. Ambassador Jiwon nodded slowly. Taeyang, Mirai said carefully. Earth is gone. The sun went supernova approximately 830 years ago. It happened faster than anyone predicted. Most of the colony ships hadn't escaped the blast radius yet. She pulled up a holographic display showing the solar system, showing Earth's orbit empty now, showing the expanded remains of the sun, a cooling nebula where a star once burned. Taeyang stared at the display. His face went pale. Everyone? We believe so, Mirai said softly. We've searched for survivors for centuries. We've found outposts, stations, even a few colony ships that made it out of the blast radius. But they all failed eventually. Equipment malfunctions, life support failures, disease. The colony program was rushed. The ships weren't ready. How many people? Taeyang whispered. We don't know exactly. Based on the records we've recovered, approximately 11 billion people were still on Earth when it was destroyed. Another 4 million were on colony ships that didn't make it. Taeyang stood up abruptly. The electrodes pulled free from his skin. He stumbled toward the wall, pressing his forehead against the cool metal. Taeyang. Mirai stood but didn't approach. She understood he needed space. I'm the last one, he said. Aren't I? The last human. We don't know that for certain, Mirai said. There were 3 ships that were never found. Yours was one of them. Maybe the others— Don't! Taeyang said harshly. He turned to face her. Tears ran down his face. Don't give me false hope. You said you searched for centuries. You said you found nothing. If there were others, you would have found them by now. Mirai had no answer for that. Ambassador Jiwon entered the room. She moved with purpose, her robes flowing behind her. Taeyang of Earth, I am Ambassador Jiwon of the Valoran Council. I must ask you some questions. Taeyang wiped his face and straightened. Ask, your ship's computer. Does it have records of the other colony ships' flight paths? Maybe. The computer is badly damaged, but some files might be recoverable. We need access to that information, Jiwon said. The Council has decided to launch a search operation. If there is even a small chance that other humans survived, we have an obligation to find them. Taeyang looked surprised. You'd do that, why? Because you are alone, Jiwon said simply. Because your species was believed extinct and now we know that might not be true. Because it is the right thing to do. She paused, her expression becoming more serious. But I must be honest with you. If we find other survivors, there will be complications. The Galactic Council has rules about endangered species. You would be protected, given sanctuary, provided for, but you would also be restricted, monitored, studied. Like animals in a zoo, Taeyang said bitterly. Like a species on the edge of extinction, Jiwon corrected. We would not allow you to make decisions that might endanger your survival. You would be safe but not entirely free. Taeyang laughed, but there was no humor in it. And if I refuse? If I just want to live my life? Then you would still be monitored, Jiwon said. You are the only confirmed human in the entire galaxy. Your genetic material alone is invaluable. Every species in the Council will want to study you, protect you, or exploit you. We can offer you protection, but it comes with a price. Let me see the exhibit, Taeyang said suddenly. The one about humans. I want to see what you've been telling people about my species. Curator Hyan, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. That might not be— Let me see it, Taeyang insisted. If I'm going to be the last human, I want to know what story you've been telling about us. Miri looked at Ambassador Jiwon, who nodded reluctantly. Very well. Curator Hyun will escort you to Hall 17. The search vessel Horizon's Echo cut through the darkness of space at maximum velocity. It was the fastest scout ship in the Valoran fleet, built for deep space exploration and rescue operations. Captain Daehyun stood on the bridge, watching the starfield stream past through the view screen. Taeyang sat in the corner of the bridge, studying a holographic display of the colony ship flight paths. His ship's damaged computer had yielded partial data about the other vessels. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give them a starting point. 3 months had passed since he walked into the museum. 3 months of decisions and preparations. The Galactic Council had offered him a choice. Stay in comfortable captivity as a living relic, or spend years searching for survivors who might not exist. The choice had been easy. Approaching the first beacon location, announced Nari, the ship's engineer. She was Valoran, like Captain Daehyun, with silver skin and 4 arms that moved constantly across her control station, reading a power signature. Faint, but definitely artificial. Dr. Mirai looked up from her workstation. She had joined the expedition as the team's xenobiologist and cultural specialist. Can you identify the signature? Matching it against our database now, Nari said. Her fingers danced across holographic controls. Got it. It's the Morning Star, one of the human colony ships. Taeyang stood up so quickly his chair rolled backward. That was one of the first ships to launch. They had 12,000 people in cryosleep. Captain Daehyun's expression was carefully neutral. Prepare to dock. Full quarantine protocols. We don't know what we'll find. The Horizon's Echo approached slowly. The Morning Star hung in space like a tomb. Its hull was scarred and pitted from centuries of micrometeorite impacts. Several sections had lost power completely, dark and cold. But one small section near the cryo bay still showed signs of minimal power. The boarding party suited up in the airlock. Taeyang, Mirai, Nari, and 2 security officers. Captain Daehyun stayed on the bridge, monitoring their vital signs and communications. The Morning Star's airlock was frozen shut. Nari had to cut through with a plasma torch. The metal glowed red, then white, before finally giving way. They pushed through into darkness. Their helmet lights cut through the black interior. Ice crystals floated in the zero gravity, glittering like stars. The ship was dead. No life support, no heat, no power except for that single beacon. Cryo Bay is this way, Taeyang said, reading the ship's layout on his suit display. His voice was tight with tension. They floated through the corridors. The walls were covered in frost. Everything was perfectly preserved by the cold and vacuum. They passed through a common area where personal items still floated in frozen suspension. A child's toy, someone's wedding ring on a chain, photographs of Earth. The cryo bay doors were sealed. Nari examined the control panel. The emergency protocols engaged. The bay is still pressurized. There might be survivors. Open it, Taeyang said. Nari worked on the door controls while the rest of them waited. Finally, the doors hissed open, releasing a cloud of frozen air. They entered carefully. The cryo bay was massive, filled with rows upon rows of cryopods. Thousands of them. Each one held a person, a family, a future that never came. Taeyang moved to the nearest pod and wiped frost from the viewing window. Inside was a woman, perfectly preserved, her eyes closed as if sleeping. The pod's display showed a flat line. No power, no life support. She had died in her sleep 800 years ago. Check them all, Mirai said quietly. We need to be certain. They spread out through the cryo bay, checking pod after pod. Every single one showed the same result. Power failure. Life support failure. Death. Taeyang reached a pod that held a family. Mother, father, 2 children. All frozen in time, all dead. He pressed his gloved hand against the viewing window. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. Taeyang, Mirai called softly. We should hold a ceremony. They deserve to be honored. They gathered in the center of the cryo bay. Taeyang accessed the ship's manifest, reading names. 12,143 people. He read each name aloud while the others listened in silence. It took hours. When he finished, Captain Daehyun spoke over the communicator. We'll mark the location on galactic charts. Register it as a memorial site. No one will disturb them. The boarding party returned to the horizon's echo in silence. The weight of 12,000 deaths pressed down on all of them. But they couldn't stop. There were other beacons to investigate. The second location took 2 weeks to reach. This time they found nothing. Just empty space where the new horizon should have been. Either the beacon data was wrong or the ship had moved. Expanding search pattern, Nari announced. Looking for any power signatures in a 10 light-year radius. Days passed. Then weeks. The crew began to lose hope. Then Nari's console lit up with alerts. Captain, I'm picking up multiple power signatures, small but active. And there's something else. Life signs. Everyone on the bridge went silent. How many? Taeyang asked, his voice barely a whisper. 17 distinct human biosignatures, Nari said, checking and rechecking her readings. They're on a moon orbiting a gas giant. No ship signatures. They must be in a settlement. Set course, Captain Daehyun ordered. Maximum speed. The moon was barely habitable. Thin atmosphere, weak gravity, freezing temperatures. But as they entered orbit, they could see structures on the surface. Crude buildings made from salvaged ship components, a small fusion reactor providing power, gardens under transparent domes. They've been here a long time, Mirai said, studying the settlement. 20 years, maybe more. I'm detecting a communications beacon, Nari reported. They're trying to contact other ships. They must have been sending signals for years. Captain Daehyun opened a communications channel. This is Captain Daehyun of the Valoran vessel Horizon's Echo. We have a human survivor with us. We're here to help. Silence. Then a voice, female, speaking in English. This is a recorded message. If you can understand this, please respond. My name is Soman. We are 17 survivors from the colony ship New Horizon. We need help. Please respond. They're not receiving us, Nari said. Their communication system is too damaged. We'll have to land. The Horizon's Echo descended carefully. The landing site was a flat area near the main settlement. As they touched down, Taeyang could see figures emerging from the buildings. They wore patched environmental suits carrying weapons. Defensive. Scared. Let me go first, Taeyang said. Alone, they'll be afraid of aliens. But they'll recognize another human. Captain Daehyun didn't like it, but he nodded. Keep your communicator active. Any sign of trouble, we pull you out. Taeyang walked down the landing ramp. The thin atmosphere made breathing difficult even with the suit's assistance. He walked slowly toward the settlement, hands raised to show he meant no harm. The figures watched him approach. One of them stepped forward, larger than the others, holding what looked like a plasma torch modified into a weapon. Taeyang stopped 20 feet away. He reached up and removed his helmet, gasping in the thin air. The figure stared at him for a long moment. Then she removed her own helmet. She was a woman in her 40s with short black hair streaked with gray. Her face was weathered and hard, marked by years of survival. Her eyes were dark and suspicious. "You're human," she said in Korean. Her voice was rough, disbelieving. "Yes," Taeyang replied in the same language. "My name is Taeyang. I was on the dandelion seed. I've been searching for other survivors." The woman's expression cracked. Tears began to run down her face. "You're real." "You're actually real. We thought we were the only ones left." Behind her, other figures removed their helmets. Men and women, some elderly, some young, and 3 children born in space who had never seen Earth. "My name is Sumin," the woman said. "Welcome to New Horizon Colony." She looked past Taeyang to the ship behind him. "Are there more humans with you?" "No," Taeyang said gently. "But there are others searching now. We're going to find everyone who survived. I promise you that." Soman nodded slowly. Then she did something unexpected. She smiled. "Then you'd better come inside. We have a lot to talk about." The settlement was small but impressive. Soman led Taeyang through corridors made from salvaged ship components, welded together with determination and skill. The walls were covered with drawings, most of them made by children. Pictures of Earth from old photographs. Pictures of stars. Pictures of hope. "We abandoned the New Horizon 20 years ago," Soman explained as they walked. "The ship suffered catastrophic damage when we hit an asteroid field. The cryo-bays failed. Most people died in their sleep. Those of us who woke up had to make a choice: stay on a dying ship or try to survive here." 17 survivors, Taeyang said. "How many started?" 6,000 people on the ship. 43 of us woke up when the systems failed. We lost more in the first year. Cold and starvation, accidents. This moon is barely habitable. We've fought for every day. They entered a common area where the other survivors waited. Taeyang saw faces marked by hardship but also by determination. These were people who refused to give up. A teenage boy stepped forward. He was tall and thin, adapted to the low gravity. His name was Youngmin. "Are you really from another colony ship?" "Yes," Taeyang said. "The dandelion seed. I was in cryo-sleep for over 800 years. 800 years, Youngmin repeated, amazed. "We've only been here for 20. It feels like forever." An elderly woman named Hana brought out food. It was protein paste grown in hydroponic gardens mixed with minerals extracted from the moon's soil. It tasted terrible, but Taeyang ate gratefully. Dr. Mirai and Captain Daehyun joined them after a few hours, giving the humans time to reunite. The Valorans were respectful, staying quiet as Salman explained their situation. "We've detected signals from other ships," Salman said, pulling up a crude star chart on a damaged display screen. "We don't have the technology to reach them, but we've been tracking them for years. At least 4 other colony ships sent distress beacons before their systems failed." Taeyang studied the chart. "We can reach them. The horizon's echo is fast. We can search the entire sector. And then what?" Youngmin asked. He sounded angry, which surprised Taeyang. "We find other survivors? Great, then what do we do? Live in museums? Become curiosities for aliens to study?" "Youngmin," Soman said warningly. "No, it's a fair question," Taeyang said. He looked at the teenager. "I walked into a museum 3 months ago and discovered my species was declared extinct. I saw my home planet displayed like a tragedy. I understand your anger. Then what's the plan?" Youngmin demanded. "We can't keep living like this, scraping by on dead moons. But the aliens won't just let us go free, will they?" Captain Daehyun spoke carefully. "The Galactic Council has rules about endangered species. You would be protected, given resources, relocated to better worlds. But there would be restrictions, monitoring, oversight. So we'd be pets," Youngmin said bitterly. "You'd be safe," Captain Daehyun countered. "I've never been safe," Youngmin shot back. "I was born on a dying ship. I've lived on this frozen rock my entire life. Safety isn't freedom." The room fell silent. Taeyang saw the other survivors nodding. They had fought too hard for survival to accept comfortable captivity now. Over the next 3 months, the horizon's echo followed the beacon signals. They found 3 more colony ships with survivors. The Harvest Moon held 37 people, mostly farmers and biologists who had created elaborate hydroponic systems inside their damaged ship. They had been living in space for 25 years, refusing to abandon their vessel. The Prometheus carried 19 scientists and researchers. They had converted their ship into a research station, studying the sector and making astronomical observations. They were thin and tired, but their minds remained sharp. The Iron Will, a mining vessel, held 54 survivors. They had landed on an asteroid and established a mining operation, extracting resources and building new equipment. They were the most self-sufficient group, with working fabricators and power systems. In total, 127 humans survived. It wasn't much, but it was more than Taeyang had dared to hope. The survivors gathered aboard a Valoran station for the first time. It was overwhelming. Humans who had been alone for decades suddenly surrounded by others of their species. There were tears, embraces, and shared stories of loss and survival. But there was also tension. Admiral Kyung-ho arrived with a fleet of Valoran ships. He was a high-ranking military official, and his presence made everyone nervous. He called a meeting with all the human survivors and their allies. "The Galactic Council has made a decision," Admiral Kyung-ho announced. "You will be relocated to Sanctuary World 7. It is a protected planet with excellent conditions. You will have resources, medical care, and security." "What's the catch?" Somin asked bluntly. Admiral Kyung-ho's expression remained neutral. "Sanctuary World 7 is a xenobiological preserve. You would live there under Council supervision. Your population would be carefully managed to ensure genetic diversity. Your cultural development would be monitored and guided." "You want to put us in a zoo," Youngmin said. "We want to ensure your species survives," Admiral Kyung-ho corrected. "You are 127 individuals. Without careful management, your species could still go extinct within a few generations." "What kind of management?" Taeyang asked carefully. "Reproductive controls, education programs, cultural preservation guidelines. You would be free to live your lives, but major decisions would require council approval." The room erupted in angry voices. Humans who had survived impossible odds were being told they couldn't control their own future. Dr. Mirai stood up. "There has to be another option. These people deserve autonomy." "They deserve survival," Admiral Kyung-ho said firmly. "And survival requires protection." That night, Taeyang met with Somin, Youngmin, and representatives from each survivor group. They gathered in a small room away from Valoran oversight. "We need to refuse," Youngmin said immediately. "We can't accept their sanctuary world." "We also can't survive alone," said Hana, the elderly woman from New Horizon. "We don't have enough people. We don't have resources. The children need stability." "There might be a third option," Somin said slowly. "I've been researching galactic law. There's an old provision about settlement rights. If we can claim an uninhabited world and establish a functioning colony, the Council has to recognize our sovereignty." "Claim a world?" Taeyang said. "How?" "There's a planet called New Terra," Somin explained. "It was surveyed centuries ago. Rich in resources, breathable atmosphere suitable for human life. But the galactic community considers it cursed. Some previous colony failed there and now no one wants it." "Why not?" asked a woman from the Harvest Moon. "Superstition, mostly. The previous colonists disappeared without explanation. But their equipment is probably still there. We could salvage it, use it to establish ourselves." "It's risky," Taeyang said. "Everything is risky," Youngmin said. "At least this way we'd be free." They debated through the night. Finally, they took a vote. The decision was nearly unanimous. They would claim New Terra, but they would need allies. Taeyang met with Dr. Mirai privately. "We need your help. We can't do this without support from someone in the Galactic Council." Mirai looked troubled. "What you're asking could end my career. The Council wants you in protective custody. If I help you defy that, I'll be punished." "I know," Taeyang said. "I wouldn't ask if there was another way. But you've seen us. You've studied human culture. Do you really think we should be kept as protected specimens?" Mirai was quiet for a long time. Then she pulled up her datapad and began copying files. "These are the legal documents about settlement rights. And these are surveys of New Terra. The planet is suitable. The superstitions are baseless. You could build a real colony there." "Thank you," Taeyang said. "Don't thank me yet," Mirai said. "You still have to convince the Council. And Admiral Kyung-ho isn't going to make this easy." The formal hearing took place in the Council chambers. Representatives from dozens of species watched as Taeyang presented the human case for independence. "We don't want charity," Taeyang said, his voice strong. "We don't want to be curiosities or specimens. We want the chance to rebuild on our own terms. Admiral Kyung-ho stood. You're asking for something dangerous. Your population is too small. Your technology is inadequate. You could fail. We've been failing for 800 years, Youngman said, stepping forward despite not being scheduled to speak. And we're still here. That's what humans do. We fail and we keep going anyway. The council chambers were vast, filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Taeyang stood at the speaker's platform, aware that billions of beings watch this broadcast across thousands of worlds. His voice had to be steady. His argument had to be perfect. We are asking for settlement rights to New Terra, Taeyang said clearly. We meet all the legal requirements. We have enough people to establish a viable colony. We have surveyed the world and found it suitable. We are willing to accept a probationary period with regular inspections. Admiral Kyung-ho rose from his seat. His presence was imposing, his voice carrying authority. The Council's concern is not about legal requirements. It's about survival. You are 127 individuals. Without guidance and protection, your species could vanish within 3 generations. Then let us vanish trying to live free, Youngmin said from beside Taeyang. Instead of dying slowly in a preserve, murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some species agreed. Others seemed shocked by the boldness. A representative from the Keltheran Union spoke. The boy makes a valid point. We cannot force a sentient species into captivity, even for their own good. That precedent would be dangerous. We're not talking about captivity, Admiral Kyung-ho countered. We're talking about preservation, protection. It's the same thing, Somin said, stepping forward. You want control over our reproduction, our culture, our choices. That's not protection. That's ownership. The debate continued for hours. Species argued among themselves. Some supported human independence. Others insisted that protection was necessary. The chamber became chaotic with competing voices. Then Curator Hyon requested permission to speak. The chamber quieted. Hyun walked slowly to the platform, his forearms clasped formally. He looked older than Taeyang remembered, tired from months of controversy. For 30 years I was curator of the human exhibit, Hyun began. I displayed humans as extinct. I wrote academic papers about their failure. I taught millions of visitors about how this species reached the stars but couldn't survive. He paused, looking directly at Taeyang. I was wrong. Not about extinction. I was wrong about humanity itself. Hyun pulled up holographic displays showing the exhibit. We portrayed humans as weak, as lucky to have reached space at all, as tragic victims of circumstances beyond their control. But the evidence tells a different story. The displays changed, showing images from the colony ships. Humans built vessels that traveled for centuries through the harshest environment in existence. When those ships failed, humans didn't give up. They salvaged parts. They built settlements on dead moons. They grew food in frozen soil. They raised children in vacuum. More images appeared. The crude settlement on New Horizons moon. The hydroponic gardens on Harvest Moon. The mining operation on the asteroid. For 800 years, humans survived impossible odds, Hyun continued. Not through superior technology or natural advantages. They survived through sheer determination, through refusal to accept extinction, through hope maintained across centuries of loss. He turned to face the council. We asked the wrong question. We asked if humans need our protection. We should have asked if we have the right to deny them their freedom. The chamber was completely silent now. Humans have proven they can survive, Hyun said firmly. Let them prove they can thrive. Ambassador Jiwon stood slowly. She had been quiet through most of the debate, but now she spoke with authority. I move that we grant settlement rights to the human survivors, with a 30-year probationary period, regular inspections to ensure basic welfare, but no control over reproduction or cultural development. Let them succeed or fail on their own terms. The vote took hours. Species debated, argued, negotiated, but finally, the decision came. By a narrow margin, the council voted in favor. Humans could claim New Terra. 3 months later, Taeyang stood on the surface of New Terra for the first time. The sky was blue, like Earth's sky in old photographs. The air was breathable, sweet with growing things. The land stretched endlessly in every direction. Behind him, transport ships landed one by one, carrying the 127 survivors and everything they owned. It wasn't much. Salvaged equipment, hydroponic systems, portable shelters. But it was theirs. Soman stood beside him looking at the horizon. It's beautiful. It's home, Taeyang said. The first weeks were brutal. They had to establish basic infrastructure, set up power systems, create water purification. Everyone worked 16-hour days. Even the children helped where they could. But slowly the settlement grew. Shelters became buildings. Temporary gardens became farms. The salvaged equipment from the previous failed colony proved valuable, once they figured out how to repair it. Dr. Mireille stayed as their liaison to the Galactic Council. She helped navigate the bureaucracy, secured supplies when needed, and documented everything. She watched humans work with the same fascination she once brought to studying their extinction. "You're smiling," Taeyang said one day, finding her watching young men teach younger children about agriculture. "I've spent years studying dead civilizations," Mireille said. "It's different watching one be born." 6 months after settlement, the first child was born on New Terra, a girl healthy and strong. They named her Hana, after the elderly woman from New Horizon who had passed away just weeks before. The galactic media covered the birth extensively. Images of the infant human spread across thousands of worlds. Some species saw hope. Others saw a species struggling against inevitable extinction. But the humans kept working. Year by year, the settlement grew. More buildings, larger farms, a school for the children, a small medical center. They discovered mineral deposits and established mining operations. They built a communications array to stay connected with the galaxy. Youngman became the settlement's primary engineer, designing new systems adapted specifically for New Terra's conditions. Soman led the governing council, making decisions through democratic vote rather than council oversight. And Taeyang worked alongside everyone else. No longer the last human, but simply one of many. 2 years after settlement, Curator Hyun sent a message. The Galactic Museum wanted to reopen the human exhibit, but they wanted to do it differently. They wanted human approval. Taeyang traveled back to Velaran Prime. Walking through the museum felt strange now. These halls had seemed so imposing when he first arrived, desperate and alone. Now they felt smaller, less frightening. Hall 17 had been completely redesigned. The old displays of extinction were gone. Instead, the exhibit told a new story. It started with Earth's destruction. The tragedy was still there, still real. But then it showed the colony ships, the survivors scattered across space, the settlements built from wreckage, the children born in the dark between stars. The centerpiece was no longer a skeleton. It was Taeyang's environmental suit, the frost-covered suit he wore that first night, preserved exactly as it was, mounted next to a hologram of the New Terra settlement. Above it, a new title: Humanity, Death, Resurrection, and the Will to Endure. "What do you think?" Curator Hyun asked, walking up beside him. "It's better," Taeyang said honestly. "But it's still not the whole story. This makes it seem like it's over. Like we've already succeeded. Haven't you?" Hyun asked. "We've survived," Taeyang corrected.
That's not the same as succeeding.
"We have maybe 200 people now, counting the children born on New Terra. We need thousands to build a stable population. We need technology, education, infrastructure. We need time." "You'll get it," Hyun said confidently. "I've watched your species for years, first as artifacts, now as living beings. You don't give up, even when you should." The exhibit opened to massive crowds. Species from across the galaxy came to see humanity's story rewritten. Some came expecting to see failure. They left seeing determination instead. And on New Terra, life continued. Farms expanded. Children grew. New buildings rose against the blue sky. The settlement spread across the landscape, claiming more territory each year. They faced setbacks, crop failures, equipment breakdowns, political tensions with the Galactic Council. But they worked through each problem together. 5 years after settlement, the population reached 237. Births outpaced deaths. Families formed. Culture evolved, blending memories of Earth with the reality of New Terra. Youngman, now in his 20s, stood before the council again. This time not asking for permission but reporting on their progress. "We have exceeded all projections," he said firmly. "Our population is stable and growing. Our agriculture is sustainable. Our economy is developing. We request an end to the probationary period and full recognition as an independent world." There was less debate this time. The evidence was undeniable. Humans had proven they could survive. Now they were proving they could thrive. The vote was unanimous. New Terra became the newest member of the Galactic Council, with full sovereignty and representation. 10 years after Taeyang knocked on that museum door, he stood at the edge of New Terra's first city. It wasn't large by galactic standards, maybe 10,000 people now, including immigrants from other species who had chosen to build lives alongside humans. But it was thriving. Dr. Mireille visited regularly, no longer as a liaison but as a friend. She brought her own family now, wanting her children to meet humans to understand their story. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked Taeyang one evening, watching the sunset over the growing city. "Waking up alone? Losing everyone you knew?" Taeyang thought about it carefully. "I regret the loss. I'll always regret that, but I don't regret surviving. If I hadn't woken up, none of this would exist. Sometimes one person's survival is enough to save everything." The museum on Velaran Prime updated its exhibit again, this time showing New Terra's growth, showing the children playing in streets built by human hands, showing a species that refused to accept extinction. But the exhibit ended with a different message now. Not closure, but possibility. The final display showed a simple question written in a dozen languages. What will humans do next? And on New Terra, under a blue sky that reminded them of home, humans continued to answer that question. One day at a time, one generation at a time, building a future from fragments of the past. A young girl born on New Terra visited the museum with her school group. She stood before Taeyang's environmental suit reading the story. Then she turned to her teacher, a Valoran with silver skin. "Were humans really almost extinct?" she asked. "Yes," the teacher said. "Once there was only one human left in the entire galaxy." "What did he do?" the girl asked. The teacher smiled. "He knocked on a door, and when someone answered, he asked for help. Sometimes that's all it takes to change everything." The girl nodded seriously, taking notes. She would write about this for her assignment. About how species survive, about how hope persists, about how one person alone in the dark can light a spark that becomes a civilization. And somewhere on New Terra, Taeyang worked in his garden, growing vegetables under an alien sun, surrounded by friends and neighbors, no longer the last human, but simply human, simply alive, simply free. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning.